right after I began practicing, I finally made my first friend on campus. And it was because I had the sense of confidence. That was very empowering to me to learn that all of these struggles I'm up against are set in my path for a reason because I am like this protagonist of my own story. A good friend, at least I think of it now, is anyone who inspires you to grow.
From SGI USA, I'm Cassidy Bradford, and this is Buddhability, the weekly series where I talk with Buddhists from all walks of life about the power we each have to change our lives and the world around us. Welcome, Dominic, to Buddhability. Thank you so much for joining me. We're coast to coast, New York and San Diego. I was mentioning before, I'm really excited to hear your story as, a young person that's really recently started practicing Buddhism. I always have our guests start with an introduction. So if you could just tell me a little bit about who you are, how you spend your time, and then we'll kind of dive in deeper after that.
So hello, my name is Dominic. I practice in San Diego North. I've been practicing for about a year and 3 months now.
Wow.
I'm a martial arts instructor for work. I work with kids, and then at school I attend Cal State San Marcos for psychology. And actually just this last semester, me and my friend, who I'll talk about a lot today, started our campus club there for the SGI.
Wow. Yay, Dominic. And what year in school are you? Did you just finish your first year or your second year?
Yeah, I just finished my second year, so now I'll be going to my junior year.
Wow, second half. Okay. So, as you mentioned, you just recently started practicing Buddhism a little over a year ago. And today we're going to talk a lot about how practicing has impacted your friendships and also your self-esteem. So, to give people a little more context, I'm thinking, you can tell me just a little bit about your life growing up and some early kind of experiences that maybe, shaped you into who you were before you started practicing.
Like all my experiences in the past, this was really a big part of it. Was growing up, I had a lot of trouble with lots of anxiety and a very timid nature where I would lay down, or the way I describe it is there's fight or flight and then freeze. And I was usually the freeze of just put everything on hold, try to just not be noticed. And I think recently through practicing, I reflected and realized that it was most likely because of troubles in my home life growing up. And through that, being able to feel like I couldn't impact my environment. I was very much a victim to my situation. Because of that, it was definitely harder for me to make friends in school. I did make 2 friends who I'm still very close to today. But originally, I feel like our friendship wasn't rooted in as much genuine connection. It was more this is the first person that was nice to me. I'm just gonna hold on to them. And because of that, as sweet as it is, I really wasn't a great friend to them because I didn't care about them from a very deep place, Moving forward with that, into middle school and high school, again, I kind of always had that feeling I was never a popular kid. I was never a cool kid, right? And it was always I wanted to be something like that, but I just felt I could be. And so that definitely caused a lot of suffering growing up, which fed into this timid nature again of just wanting so much validation from my peers, but feeling like an outsider.
A weekend or 2 ago, I was supporting this event with middle schoolers, and they were so incredible. And it was totally giving me flashbacks to middle school. I was somebody that, I got bullied and I really felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. And I also really struggled making really deep friendships. I had one, childhood friend that's still a friend today. And I feel so fortunate to have that. But I struggled a lot to be able to, connect authentically with others because I was so concerned about how people perceived me. What did that look like in your daily life in school? What kind of kid were you? The super quiet kid, you've got your 2 friends and that's kind of how you navigate life?
Yeah. So in elementary school, well, going through like middle school too, yeah, I was very much like the super quiet kid, kept to myself, didn't really like speak unless spoken to. And yet at the same time, I was so concerned with how people viewed me, like very self-conscious of my how I dressed, my hair, my skin. I had so many insecurities. It's interesting because I felt like I was out of the spotlight. Like nobody really looked at me, nobody talked to me. And yet at the same time, it was like so worried of everybody looking at me too, you know?
Oh my God. Yeah, I've never heard it described that way, but I know exactly what you mean. It's a very like strange and kind of isolating feeling like at the same time nobody sees you, but also like fearing that everybody sees you. Wow. So then, at what point were you like exposed to Buddhism? What led you to deciding like, oh yeah, maybe I want to try this? Like, were you somebody that was always like open to spirituality and curious?
Yeah, yeah. So in high school, me still being like that type of person, I got into a relationship, and of course, given if that's how I was, then it wouldn't be a very healthy relationship, right? So it ended, and luckily, I was able to seek from a teacher at my school who I still consider very much to be a mentor of mine. He had a positive psychology class where essentially he was teaching students how to deal with insecurities, a lot of honestly very, very Buddhist concepts. And I felt such a deep connection with him. So he really opened me to that side of philosophy. And then after another relationship, which again wasn't very healthy, just me coming into it wasn't in the best place. With that ending, my good friend Jordan invited me to a Buddhist meeting. And so I remember I go to the meeting, it's so warm and lovely and hopeful and just such a massive change of pace that right, like I'm talking probably a week after I like exited this unhealthy relationship because I finally had courage and hope to like speak up for myself.
Wow. Could you, I don't know, like sort of intellectualize at that point, like, oh, something about this Buddhist meeting like made me feel different so I could stand up and get out of this relationship? Or at the time, did it just sort of feel like, I don't know, like less obvious? Does that question make
That
sense?
does make sense. That does. The best way I could describe it was going to this district meeting. It felt like I was going to like a family's house on Thanksgiving. And it was just such a sense of community of people who didn't know me at all, like had never met me, just asking me about my day, what I do for work, what I do for school, and just like the biggest, warmest smiles. And like when I'm leaving, everyone's like giving hugs, they're giving us food to take home. And it was like, what are these people doing to just be so joyful? Like, how? And another big role model was actually my friend Jordan. In high school, we connected a little bit in our earlier years, but then it was right at the end where we really started hanging out. And he was honestly a really good role model that I saw of just he seemed so same thing like I don't think I ever saw him in a bad mood, you know? He was just always such a go-getter, and that really inspired me of like what's his secret?
So then when he asked you to come to like a Buddhist meeting to check it out, because you had seen kind of like through his life, were you like, yeah, sure, I want to go? Or did you feel like, I don't know if like Buddhism is for me? Were you like hesitant at all?
Um, I was pretty open, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was desperate enough to know I needed change. And
Yeah.
it's times like that where you're just the most open because you're like, I know
Yeah.
something's not going right. I need something new. And luckily that was the new thing that I found and found me.
Yeah. I think for many people, there's like my life is not going the direction that I want, or there are things that like I want to be moving but aren't moving, and I can't quite figure out like how to change it. And so they like are open to Buddhism or start practicing because they see like, oh, maybe this is like a tool to actually be able to change some of the things that I want to. After going to that first meeting, did you start chanting at all? And like, what were your first experiences like of chanting?
Yeah, so I think we went to that first meeting. I listened to the chanting. Went to my second meeting. I think it was a Gosho study, and again just kind of listened. But it wasn't until I went to my friend's house, he invited me over to chant, just us, and that was the first time I really experienced the power of chanting. And I remember feeling like it was me and two friends, and just something about how like our voices harmonized when we're chanting, and just that energy in the room of feeling like we're all doing this for a reason. Just felt I felt so connected to them and also to myself, of goal setting and doing something to actually like re-energize myself.
I love that you mentioned like feeling connected to yourself, because I don't know if you like, I don't know, experience this at all, but I'm somebody that like I also, struggle with anxiety. And so much is in my head all of the time, and like it's noisy, and I'm like, over intellectualizing everything. And then when I chant, it's like those thoughts are still there, but I feel more like, yeah, in tune with myself, sort of, and like I can really listen to myself rather than get so swayed in thoughts. Just that like feeling of connection to yourself is really, yeah, for somebody with anxiety, like feels really grounding for me.
Mhm.
So after that first time, what did you do? Were you like, oh my gosh, like I gotta keep chanting, I really like this? Or did it take some time to build like a rhythm of chanting?
Yeah, honestly, funny enough, I was so disciplined at that point with my chanting. Of I remember doing it every morning and then every night, and I recognize it as I had so much suffering in that time of my life, and this was like a new door that had just been opened to me. So I just went like full in, so much commitment, like no matter what, I'm just gonna go every morning, every night. And I genuinely think I went like my first 3 months of like never missing chanting.
So, as you were like starting to test things out, like those first 3 months, for example, were you noticing any changes in your life, either like in your external environment or internally?
I, yeah, 100% I was. So internally, again, like that number one thing was that sort of hope. And that came out especially as confidence as well, of being much more confident and comfortable with myself, with my peers at school, at work. And that really just came out to being able to have better friendships through compassion. I remember that time especially, just like every weekend I always had someone that I wanted to connect with. And it went from filling my time like I was lonely and I just wanted to get out, to I genuinely care about these people. Being around them puts smiles on my face and brings me joy. And eventually through my practice it came to, I want to leave that same impact on them. Every time we hang out, how can I leave them feeling refreshed for their week? I really just wanted to connect with people on such a deeper level. And I think that was one of my greatest benefits from just when I started the practice. I remember specifically, it was one day, again, it was Jordan and another friend. We went on a hike, and it was like right when I started chanting. It was this really big mountain not too far from us. We like totally got lost on the way up, but finally, like I'm talking like this was a grueling long hike. We get to the top, and it's like sunset, and it's just the most beautiful view. And then I remember I actually got really emotional because I was looking out and it was the sunset. And like I quite literally just climbed this mountain. And that clicked in my head of connecting that with like the practice of now, this practice is how I'm gonna climb all these mountains in my own life. And like there's a picture of me with the sunset and like I've got my thumbs up and it was like this
Oh.
picture just represents this new chapter of hope in my life moving forward.
I mean, not to be dramatic, but that did give me chills a little bit. Because I think, like, yeah, something I've been thinking about recently actually is like how much my Buddhist practice gives me appreciation for life.
Mhm.
And to me, it sounds like this, that moment of like the physical almost representation of your internal journey of like, okay, I'm gonna really climb this mountain to transform my life. I imagine, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe a sense of like pride, like wow, I can do this,
Yeah.
like this sense of self-worth in a new way. Um, you mentioned with chanting, like you started to gain like confidence and courage. And is it something that like you were really chanting, like, I want to have so much courage and self-esteem, or was it something that just kind of naturally came out as, a byproduct of your chanting?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And like reflecting for this to prepare, I really like found the answer for that. I think it was a byproduct because what I found myself originally chanting for wasn't my own happiness specifically, but it was for the happiness of like my past partners. Because I came to chanting just getting out of this relationship. And through that, I initially found myself chanting more for, yeah, my past partners and my peers, especially. And learning that was really this newfound sense of compassion coming out of me, of being able to recognize I'm suffering, and for whatever reason, I'm chanting for all these other people. And I think this brought me courage and that confidence because now when I'm interacting with people, I'm making new friends, I'm not worried so much about what they're thinking of me. I'm like coming back to that kind of spotlight thing before. It's like now I'm not necessarily putting myself in the spotlight because I'm trying to spotlight these other people and give them that same kind of feeling that I've found. And so through that, it's like I'm not worried about what this person's thinking of me because I am too focused on how can I connect with them in a genuine way.
Wow. Yeah. This makes me think about like sometimes when I'm going about my daily life, I'm just like so absorbed in my own stuff,
Hmm.
And then when I chant, it's like, oh wait, my blinders are taken off, so to speak. I can really think about other people, and it always makes me feel so much better. When I'm like just wrapped up in my own kind of stuff, my world is so small and it's very easy to get kind of like, yeah, just absorbed in my stuff.
In really like this past year of practice, I felt like I had these two kind of lower points, and I felt like almost like what's different or like what am I doing wrong in a sense. And then after change, and so I was like, oh, I'm not practicing for other people. I'm just so focused on myself and my own challenges to where that's all I think about. And of course, if I'm just focused on all the things that I'm up against, then it can be very draining. And so remembering like even when I'm chanting, I go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even chant for any of my friends, any of my family today."
Yeah.
And so just
Yeah.
waking up to
Yeah.
that and then literally like something just switches of again that compassion and just seeing the world through some more fresh eyes.
the same thing happens with me where I'm like, wait a second, whoa, like that's why I'm like so like stressed out or really like, yeah, can't break through something. I was just reading, I wish I had it with me, but I was just reading something recently about how, you know, our Buddhist practices for both ourselves and others. And it's important to recognize that like practicing to support other people actually benefits us too, you know? So it's not like this totally selfless thing like you're sharing, like through chanting about and supporting other people, that actually is like something that shifts your own life. It makes you happier. It's not this like, oh, self-sacrificing thing. You know, it's actually something that like really helps us expand our own lives and become even happier,
Mm.
which I do think like is kind of maybe revolutionary sounds a little like intense, but like I don't think that's all that common in society, right? Like it's either you do good and it's like just this totally selfless act, or you need to like really preserve yourself in order to support others. But I think Buddhism is like you support others in order to support yourself. So interesting that like when you started practicing, you were really like chanting about others. That's amazing because I'm like, I was all about myself. Which, you know, is totally okay and natural. But I just think that's so, yeah, so incredible and really, yeah, very encouraging to me to hear that. And then you had this byproduct of becoming more like confident in yourself and courageous.
And just kind of through reflecting, I think part of the reason I chanted so much for the people around me, especially for like my partner after our relationship ended, was again this like low self-esteem. Because don't get me wrong, of course, chanting for like that partner and their happiness is very good, but it came especially from a place of grief and feeling like their happiness is so much more important than mine. Like I felt bad. I felt bad coming out of this, standing up for myself in a sense, because of that low self-esteem. It didn't feel right for me to stand up for myself because it was something I didn't do. So it was almost like I had to recognize and learn that I can use this practice for myself and I should. It's
Yes.
not selfish to do that.
Yeah. 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 It's this balance, right? Of like we have to have both things. I'm wondering like what you think since practicing Buddhism, maybe like the purpose or the value of friendship is now than like when you were younger and really like were struggling to develop friendships.
Yeah, I think I mean that's the question that definitely like touches me the most
Yeah. Yeah.
because I really think friendship and all my newfound friendships are just my greatest benefit from this practice.
Hmm.
Absolutely. When I was younger,
Hmm.
friendships was definitely more of like a popularity type of thing.
Hmm.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's a little natural growing up of like
Totally.
you want these friends because you want to be seen with these people. You want to be like perceived in a certain way. And I definitely had
Hmm.
that where I would chase after certain friends just because of how I thought I was going to look being around those
Hmm.
people. But as I got older, I certainly got more comfortable with myself, and especially after practicing, it was like with all that growth that we mentioned earlier, I really just skyrocketed of like my ability to make new connections just everywhere I go. I was in my first year of college. It was after the first semester, going into the second semester. And right after I began practicing, I finally made my first friend on campus. And it was because I had the sense of confidence. He would do this thing where he would sit outside the library and he would invite strangers to come sit down with him. And I remember like I like walked past once or twice. I was like, oh, I'm too nervous. But eventually I was like, no, like
Oh.
I really want to do this. And so from that
Mm.
courage, I came and I sat down. And now he's like
Mm.
such a tremendous friend. And then also within my own district and my region, it's like my local Buddhist community.
Mm-hmm.
I connected with the youth so well to where I just have like these brothers and sisters who I can
Mm.
really rely on. And more recently than ever, I've found so much joy. We all feel the same way of wanting to share not only this
Mm.
Buddhism, but to raise up other youth and just make a
Mm.
difference in our communities, which
Mm.
I just feel so like tremendously grateful for that I have these
Yeah.
people now in my environment who, I mean, they live essentially in my neighborhood, in my community. So it was only
Mm-hmm.
after beginning to practice that I find all these people around me.
Mm. Yeah, I think like some of my like Buddhist friends, now they're like honestly all over the world. But they're like friendships that, yeah, will last for my lifetime. You know, even people that I knew like in high school or in college, sharing this sort of sense of purpose, you know, with your life, like to really be able to support others and, yeah, support peace. It's helped me definitely develop friendships in like all areas of my life, you know. I was definitely somebody growing up that, like I said, I had that like childhood friend that was really close, but other than that, like it was really a struggle to feel like I could just be myself. And I think for me, one of the greatest benefits of my Buddhist practice is like feeling like I can just be myself wherever I go and not feel, of course, you know, sometimes I battle insecurity, everybody does, but it just feels so different now. So, I wanted to talk just sort of like about Buddhist concepts. So, when you first started practicing Buddhism and learning kind of more about it and studying, were there any particular concepts to you that were like, ooh, this is really interesting, or felt like, oh, this totally resonates with my life?
Yeah, so when I first started practicing, like the one thing that really jumped out at me was the concept of the 10 worlds. Because actually not even for what the 10 worlds were, but because I was always into like other like mythology and stuff like that, I thought it was gonna be like, I don't know, something like Norse mythology where it was like 10,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like 10 like actual worlds. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I found out what it was in this practice, it's still like I actually really enjoy it, and it's still like one of the number one things that I try to remember in my day to day. And so essentially the 10 worlds is 10 life states or life conditions that people can just fluctuate through. With the bottom being like hell, which is just no hope, everything is pain, everything is suffering, which I'm sure like so many of us have felt that like at some point in time or another. All the way up to Buddhahood or enlightenment, which is just all these positive qualities in your life you're able to bring out, and through that you're able to bring it out in your environment and the people around you. And so when I first began practicing, I'd go through my day and like literally in my mind I'd be like, okay, what world am I in right now? What world am I in right now? Okay, that just happened. That wasn't great. I feel like I'm not in the greatest world right now. And then trying to, whenever I chant, really just visualize ascending up higher. So when I'm done chanting, I actually feel that shift in my mood, which of course affects my day-to-day life. And even just today, actually at the meeting, I saw it in a new perspective of this concept of life conditioning, which is just the way you perceive your life at any moment and how that affects how you act and behave and you talk and who you talk to and just feeling all these positive emotions. And I really started to feel like that is the foundation of my practice, or at least I want it to be. I'm gonna continue to make it the foundation. Every time I chant, it should be to keep this high life condition. I have so many goals and things where I want to work on my discipline and everything I want to achieve. And it's so easy to get stuck up on, like, how do I make this happen from a logical standpoint, which is good. But if I'm not actually joyous and happy and having a good day, I'm not going to want to make that stuff happen. I'm not going to try my best to make it happen. So learning to just constantly raise my mood to be the happiest that I can be at almost any given moment, I realize that's really how I'm going to get the most done and be the best friend and, be the best student and worker and teacher. So that's really what I'm trying to keep in like the core of my heart. The second kind of goes in with this, but the idea of like the bodhisattvas of the earth and taking on karma that we've chosen. And so essentially what that means is we are all bodhisattvas who were, in a sense, destined doesn't sound like the right word, but kind of like destined to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and practice this Buddhism. And that was very empowering to me to learn that all of these struggles I'm up against are set in my path for a reason, because I am like this protagonist of my own story. I'm doing all this and facing all of this for a reason. And I really like the idea that like whether I realize it or not, I chose this in a sense. Because then when I'm up against some sort of challenge, I'm able to be like, no, like I picked this out. I said I was gonna do this in, whatever, like a prior lifetime or however you want to visualize it. I said I was gonna do this. I decided I was gonna do this because I knew that the growth from it is gonna be just so tremendous. So again, that Bodhisattva mission is essentially what it's called a lot. And even now, I feel like I've awakened to that, starting the Buddhism campus club at my school, just and the way that I want to change my family karma and all of these things, where I was able to wake up and say these challenges, the way I was raised, the way I went to school and I interacted with these people and this like timid life nature, like I chose this. I said I was going to come over this so I could show all these people around me the power of this practice.
I think for me too, that's something that can help me shift from feeling like a victim of my circumstances and more like a protagonist, like you said, and, now having practiced for long enough, there have been so many moments in my life actually where I can use the things that I've struggled with and overcome to be able to encourage somebody else that like it's totally possible. Because there's so many like really big and painful and scary things that happen in our lives, all of us. And it can feel like, well, this specific problem is like not surmountable.
Yeah.
But then you can see somebody else that's like so joyful and on the other side, or even they're in the middle of it and they're like joyful and really like fighting to overcome it. Even if I can just encourage one person, all of that suffering was totally worth it. Those are both like super such like incredible concepts, and very like deep. And so then the kind of like second part of this question is, were there any Buddhist concepts or anything that you read that helped you start to change both your relationship to yourself and also your relationship to your friends?
Yeah. There's one quote, was the way I heard it was a paraphrase of the original. And so the paraphrase version went like it was a conversation between the original Buddha and like one of his students. And the student asked, is good friendships like part of enlightenment? And the Buddha replied, no, like good friendships is the whole of enlightenment. And I've really felt that in my own life, in the sense of these people that I've met, recognizing, well, number one, it was changing my definition of a good friend. Because a good friend, which I realize now, or at least I think of it now, is anyone who inspires you to grow. And so, funny as it may be, someone who is like a not so great friend could actually be a very good friend for you overall.
Yeah.
Because they inspire you to grow and see things from new perspectives and really just challenge, again, your relationship with them in a good way and the relationship with yourself. And then another side of that is meeting these new friends, especially in like my district and my Buddhist community, of again inspiring each other and always picking each other up. Because once we're so close and we've had that genuine connection, we can tell when someone like in the group is suffering or has stuff. And so we're constantly there to pick each other up and push each other forward and inspire each other. And so having that is just like, I have this safety net now that I didn't have when I was younger, of my lowest will never be as low as it once was, because I always have this community to bounce me back up and keep me going. And so that, like, one quote is really, really stuck with me, among some others, but that's the one that, like, really just inspires me to be a great friend.
Wow. And I like really love that quote because I think it's really telling, you know, like how profound and important it is to have good friends in our lives. And to your point, like a good friend is just somebody that like makes us challenge ourselves, you know, makes us grow. So it's sometimes like for me, a friend that will tell me what I need to hear, even if I don't always want to hear it. They'll embrace me and just let me, you know, complain about something when I need to, or somebody that like, man, they really drive me nuts. But actually, they drive me nuts because they're bringing something out of my own life. Mm-hmm. It's really not even about them. Mm-hmm. It's my own tendency to be whatever. In that sense, they are a good friend because they're helping me see the things about myself that are, you know, really causing me to suffer. So incredible to kind of like, yeah, go from feeling like, you know, really struggling to feel connected with others and now having this kind of like renewed determination and courage around friendship and sense of like what it means to be a good friend. Now you've been practicing for over a year, and I'm wondering, like, in the time since you started practicing, what new things have you like learned about yourself or seen about yourself that maybe you didn't see before?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, to start off, definitely ridding myself of that sort of victim mindset, that with like the timid nature of feeling like I was just, this is the way life is, and like I'm just gonna try and hold out. Because I've really learned to stand up for like my own happiness, my own peace. But in terms of like really looking at myself, I've been able to, well, that kind of goes hand in hand, but another Buddhist concept called devilish functions. Essentially, what it does mean is things in your life, whether it be a friend or what I've found more recently is like a pattern of thought almost, that is a sort of self-sabotage to bring you out of this highest life state. But at the same time, overcoming that is such a tremendous joy and such a tremendous obstacle that's always going to lead to growth. So seeing these devilish functions in my own life, especially internal, a key one that I was really just awoken to more recently was knowing how competent I am, but overthinking it always. I can have the answer and I can find the answer on my own, but if I don't believe in myself that that is the answer, it doesn't really work out. So overcoming that, which I'm still very much working on, is a tremendous growth for me. And then another really big one goes, again, back to like this low self-esteem is, yeah, feeling like I can't have an impact. When I was asked to share an experience at the FNCC, which is like this big like Buddhist conference and retreat in Florida, you connect with people and you learn, and there's like studies together, and then there are people sharing their experiences. And when I was asked to share, it was like me, like why me? Like I don't think I have anything worthwhile to say. Like I can't imagine people being encouraged from my words. And then I did that. And that's essentially living proof that that thought, that self-sabotage wasn't correct. I'm really starting to overcome that devilish function or trying my best to. Seeing myself in a much more positive light in what I hope to be the deepest sense of transforming these very fundamental patterns of behavior and thoughts and how I perceive the world, which really is all how I perceive myself. That is really what I'm working to change and seeing change.
That's the real stuff. And of course, in this Buddhism, we have two different kinds of benefits, so to speak. There's conspicuous, meaning like, you know, you chant about finding friends in college and then you find the friends. But the inconspicuous is like this personal growth, you know, like through the process of chanting, you know, I don't know necessarily whether you were chanting to find friends, but like in this hypothetical, right? Like chanting to find friends through going for that like conspicuous benefit, you had to bring out like courage, right? And so that's like the really the deepest and like most profound benefit of this practice is making those deep shifts in our lives and changing the way that we think about things. We can kind of at this point, you know, wind down with a piece of Buddhist advice. I'm wondering what advice you would give to someone listening who maybe is in the same spot you were and feeling like really struggling to make friendships, but they really want to build strong and lasting friendships. What advice would you give them?
Always, always, always remember that the best way to impact someone else is with being genuine with yourself. Because if you are not being your true self, then this other person is not going to be comfortable being their true self around you. So, generating that confidence, the way I see it, confidence is all based in like, this is who you are, and confidence is when you are acting as who you are. And then insecurity is, this is who you are, and this is like who you're trying to be. So when there's that like alignment between those two, that's really when you can connect with new people, because you're going to find all the interests, the common interests with, could again be common interests, but it could be the tiniest details of these people that you're like, I see that in myself. And that's really the best way, I think, to make those new connections and those friendships. And that all, again, comes with just being super honest with yourself, taking the time to reflect and really, really figure out who you are and who you want to be, and just letting that, like, open up to the world. Like, when I think of my friend Jordan, who introduced me, you are going to be that person for someone else, where they look at you and they're like, what is that person doing? Like, what are they doing? Because they look and they see someone who's smiling, who's friendly, who's courageous, who's, you know, on top of their stuff, or at least trying to be on top of their stuff. You know, they see the effort, and that's really just attractive to people in the sense that they want to be around that energy, and they want to figure it out, and they want to know it. So have that courage in your own growth and in your own practice. And then honestly, I feel like getting over that is, you know, that initial trouble. And then once you meet the SGI and you learn about the practice, really it's like, it starts to speak for itself, because now you've essentially, if this practice is like a tool, you've explained to them what the tool is for. They've put on their safety gear and said, okay, I'm going to try it out. And then once they try it out, they're like, oh my gosh, I can do everything with this.